All right, special rules, part 2, here we go. I thought about doing hero separately, but it's simple enough, we're just gonna make it work. So a hero is a unit with a toughness of up to 6. So tough 3, tough 6, they can be a hero. Now, they can go with another unit as long as there's only one. So you only have one hero per unit, and that stops a lot of shenanigans just by itself. One hero per unit. Now, when that unit with the hero takes a morale check, you can use the hero's quality for your morale test. Usually that's probably better. You cannot use the hero's save, his defense or her defense, until everything else is gone and the hero's on their own. So easy enough. Pick something fun, put it with something that needs some backup, get out there. Immobile. Can't move. Impact. Now this represents your bikes and your cavalry crashing into things. So whatever the variable number is, whatever the X is, you get that many rolls, and for every 2+ you get a hit. So if you have impact 2, you roll 2 dice. For every 2 up you get, that's an automatic hit. It's worth noting there are no other special rules to this, so it's just you get the hit and then that's it, and then you go to your normal weapons. Indirect. You don't need to be able to draw a line of sight. You ignore cover from sight obstruction. So sometimes between the unit firing and the unit being fired at, you ignore it. You fire at them, they don't get their cover save, it's good stuff. Now, if you fire an indirect weapon and you moved, -1 to hit, so it's a little harder to hit. Lance, when you charge, you add 2 to your AP rating. So if your AP rating is 1, it becomes 3, 1 plus 2. Lock on, weapons with this rule ignore cover and all negative modifiers to hit rolls and range. So if your enemy has something that's like stealth that's making him harder to hit, you ignore that because you're locked on. Poison. This is an interesting one. This poison does 2 things. If you're being hit with a poison weapon, you get a -1 to your regeneration roll. So if you got a regeneration 5 up, it becomes a regeneration 6 up. And if the person rolling to defend rolls a natural 6, they have to re-roll it, which actually increases the lethality of your roll by 1/6 chance, which is just, it doesn't seem like it should be that much, but it really is, especially if you're up against lightly armored units that have like 5 up saves. It really makes a difference. Speaking of regeneration, whenever you take a wound, you roll dice. For every 5 up, you ignore the wound like it didn't happen. Now this is important because if you fail your defense on a deadly 3, you've taken 3 wounds and now you have to use regenerate 3 times. So you have to do 1 regenerate for every wound that you took, not necessarily every defense that you failed. Relentless. When you take the hold action, which means no moving, anytime you have an unmodified roll of 6, you double the amount of hits, but only the first one counts as a 6 for special rules. So if you have a special rule that procs when you get a natural 6, it procs once and does an extra hit that does not have the special rule to it. Reliable is usually on a weapon like a sniper. It means you hit on a 2 up. Easy enough. Rending. Each time an enemy takes a hit from this weapon, they get a -1 to the regeneration roll. And whenever they roll an unmodified roll to hit of 6, so your enemy gets -1 to regeneration, and every time you roll a 6, you get to add 4 to your AP. Refers to that, you count as having an AP of 4. You don't get to add 4. It really doesn't matter at that point. But Scout, you can be deployed after everything else. Immediately move up to 12 inches, ignoring all the terrain. If you both have Scout, you roll off to see who places them first. Slow, so just like fast, this is the inverse. You get -2 when moving, you get -4 when charging or rushing. Sniper. Models firing this weapon with a special rule count as having a quality of 2 up on all of their attacks. When they're firing ranged weapons, you may pick a model from the target unit when you fire. So if there's a hero in the unit, or if there's a model in the unit that has a special weapon, you can single them out. Shooting is resolved as if the target were a unit of 1, which means that they cannot have the wounds that they fail roll over. So you can only get rid of 1 target, but you can get to pick what target that'll be. Stealth. If you're greater than 12 inches away, -1 to hit when you're shot at. Strider. You treat difficult terrain as open terrain anytime you move more than 1 inch. I misspoke. So Striders, you treat difficult terrain as open terrain, and you may move more than 6 inches, because in difficult terrain you can't move more than 6 inches even if you're charging. I apologize. Now tough. Tough is where we get kind of interesting. So tough is a variable. It's usually in threes. And basically it means you have to accumulate however many wounds you are tough. So if you're a tough 3, you have to accumulate 3 wounds before you're removed as a casualty. Anytime you are deployed inside of a transport at the beginning of the game, or you make contact with them, and okay, I see what happened there. So I've actually got a weird error in this particular document. I didn't catch this because I really haven't needed to do anything with transport, but they blended the transport and the tough together. That's interesting. So transports. So transport will have X, and X is the number of models that it can carry. Heroes with up to a toughness of 6 and non-hero units with up to a toughness of 3 count as 3 spaces. So if you have a unit of 3 units of 3, each of those 3 units counts as 3 spaces. So 3, 6, 9. So your unit of 3 that each have 3 wounds, they count as 9 for the purposes of transport. Now, transports, as you can imagine, are always a little tricky in these kind of games, but let's go through it. You can deploy in the transport in the beginning of the game, or you can embark on it if you make contact with it. Embarked units may use any action to disembark, including charging, but may only move up to 6 inches. So you can get out and shoot, you can get out and hold still and shoot. You can charge, but you can only charge 6 inches when you get out. If the transport is destroyed, units in it must take a dangerous terrain test and are immediately shaken, which means you can't do anything for that turn until you activate. Surviving models may be placed within 6 inches before the terrain is removed. Heroes must still be assigned the wounds last. So if you take 5 total, dangerous terrain test fails, your hero gets the last of them. And of course, if you're in the transport, you don't count as having line of sight to anyone outside of the transport. All right, so we're going to circle back because we've got 2 left to go back to that we held off. So aircraft, they must be deployed before other units. Since it counts as being way, way, way up in the air, it ignores the terrain and the other units when moving and stopping. It cannot seize an objective, and it cannot be moved into contact with. This model may only use advanced action, so it's always moving. It moves in a straight line between 30 and 60 inches without turning at any point. If this move makes it go off the table, its activation ends, and it must deploy on any table edge at the beginning of the next round. Aircraft must always complete their mandatory move, even if shaken. Units targeting aircraft get a plus 12-inch range and -1. No, you get a minus 12-inch range and a -1 to hit. That makes more sense. So it's got to move a lot, and you got to kind of figure out where you're going to move it to, but you get to shoot, and you don't get shot back very well, and it's a relatively safe thing to send flying off, and then every turn you want, you can usually get it coming back and get it where the most. The other one we got to look at is casters. Casters are spellcasters and are magicians. Casters get X spell tokens at the beginning of each round. You can't have more than 6 at once. At any point before attacking, you may try to cast 1 or more spells. May only attempt to cast each spell once, though, by picking from the model's army list. There's 2 level 1 spells, 2 level 2 spells, and 2 level 3 spells, and spending that many tokens as the spell's value in brackets. 1 token for a level 1 spell, 2 tokens for a level 2 spell. You roll a dice, and on a 4-up, you resolve the effects as if you successful to a target in line of sight. This model and other casters within 18 inches, so you and anyone else that's around you, can spend any number of tokens to increase or decrease the roll by 1. So if you have 3 sorcerers and they're all next to each other and you're casting a spell you really want to go off, you can have 2 sorcerers that are near the first one spend 1 token each, and that will give the first one a +2 to cast, meaning it'll cast on a 2-up. If you are getting ready to get hit with a spell and you have a caster, you can spend 1 to make the spell harder for your opponent to do. And that's it. We went through all the special rules in 2 parts in less than 20 minutes. Now, of course, each army has its own stuff, and there still is the advanced rules, but this gives us a full coverage of all the basics that you need to play this game. Stick with us. We've got more to come. We're going to look at armies. We're going to look at factions. We're going to look at lore. It's going to be good stuff. Dorkness Inc. out.